4, 3, 2, 1. Well, happy Thursday. We know it's Thursday because we are back with another edition of Jedi Live Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Strategies in 15 minutes or next. I am your Jedi Master, Holly Holiday, feeling a bit under the weather, but justice stops for no man, woman, or non-binary. So we are going to continue moving ahead. This is a really important topic that we're discussing today because I get asked this question all the time. And I was recently asked this question again just last week. And it is, usually by managers or directors or people who sit at a leadership level in an organization, often folks who may even have control over budgets and spending, may even be leading some of these efforts within their institutions. And they get asked and they feel pressure and they say, Holly, our staff keeps asking us to prove that we're serious about diversity. They are looking for us to take action. If I hear that word once a day, I hear it 20 times a day. They are looking for action. We are trying to do better, but honestly, it takes time. How do we share with our staff that we are doing our best? And how do we communicate to get them on our team? Well, first of all, let's start with this. Don't assume that your staff is not on your team because they're asking you critical questions. I know many times, although not all the time, these communication gaps fall along generational lines. And so let's first think about what may be causing the question to begin with. So how do we get here? How do we even get to the point where our staff is even asking us this question? Well, first and foremost, I think we need to acknowledge and be really honest and straightforward about what is our organizational history. Even if the people asking the question or the people who are currently engaged in the organization at its current time were not technically a part of its history, the history of an institution or an organization lives well beyond the people who participated in it. And you may find that there are generational ghosts that are still hanging around that maybe haven't been dealt with, that haven't been addressed. There could be reputational whispers that are happening in the corridors and that may be, in fact, still guiding the way you work. And let's be honest, you may even have practices and policies that have that the organization has outgrown, but that you've never really taken a deep dive or look into. And also, there may have been times in your history, in the organizational history, where there have not been as glowing or as bright as you would have liked them to be. Organizations, like people, like all of us, do make mistakes, do have moments in their history that look better in the rear view, that look worse, I should say, in the rear view than they did when they were initially happening. And we have to be able to reconcile and deal with that. Additionally, you may be experiencing generational divide communication, especially between younger and older generations. Typically, if you are a person who is in management, who is in that leading spot, and frankly, these questions have come most frequently from baby boomers and Gen Xers, getting them from younger staff people, you have to recognize that millennials don't naturally trust institutions. And in fact, especially if you think about some of the issues, they may even see you as part of the problem. I know that can be a real mind shift. I too am a Gen Xer, and it's hard to think, I've been fighting for justice my whole life to now be working with people who think I'm part of the problem. It's crazy, but true. And then you think about Gen Zers, where their line between their social causes and their work life is pretty thin. And when they work for or work in spaces where issue and advocacy are a part of their actual jobs, that line gets even thinner. And then the other thing to think about as to why we got here can be poor communication. Sometimes when we are in these upper management positions, again, because of the way we've been trained, we're not always as open and as transparent as we can be. We tend to focus as being gatekeepers of information, and we know this really does not serve us, especially in a space where we're working with staff people like millennials and Gen Zs that are used to high information. They are very accustomed to just being able to click a few buttons and find out pretty much anything they want to know. So when they're in environments when communication is not flowing freely, not only does it not contribute to trust, it also contributes to them wanting to ask a lot more questions, not always challenging, but really in an informational kind of way. And the key is that this isn't adversarial in nature. It really should be seen as an opportunity for generations of workers to work together. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, but understanding the perspective of others across their age ranges is going to be critical to being able to not only communicate better, but to effectively implement any type of justice, equity, diversity, or inclusion solution. Okay. Whew, Holly, that was a lot. You done spent almost half the time just diagnosing the problem. Well, sadly, that is kind of how it goes. But let me not leave here without giving you a few things to think about when you're looking at solutions. And these are things that you can investigate yourself as well as use as a guidepost to decide if your organization is doing enough or is doing things in a way that may be able to sustain change. So one key point on the solutions category of how do we communicate and how are we able to communicate or prove, quote unquote, where are your receipts, that the organization is making an effort and that they have a plan to be better in the area of diversity. Let's start with, again, understanding that organizational history, but here's the key: aligning it with mission through a Jedi lens. Well, what does that mean, Holly? Well, what it means is that not only are we looking to accomplish what our mission seeks for us to accomplish, but we want to make sure that all identities see themselves in it, and particularly identities that align with the communities that we're working in. You can't be working in a Latina community and the Latina community is not seeing the benefit of your mission. And so these are the kinds of things that when you think about alignment, you got to think about it through the Jedi lens and ensuring that all of the communities line up and have the same impact from your mission as other communities. A lot of this can also look like really being clear about what that impact looks like. Again, that process to get to impact may differ amongst communities, but the impact that you have in terms of your mission should have a similar effect. Then you think about honesty. It's important that you acknowledge, look, we can do better. It's not really about feeling the shame of what has happened in the past. It's recognizing that your future performance will always be judged not only on what you have done, but what you are doing. And so if what you've had done has had some mistakes, let's try to see how we can adjust, how we can make adjustments and be better moving forward. And you got to be honest about the opportunity to be better. And in fact, see it as an opportunity. Mistakes are not just areas of failure, they're opportunities for success. And it requires us to be proactive in being able to do that. Now, once you have an idea about what alignment looks like or where you're out of alignment and what you need to correct, and you're ready to really recognize past mistakes as opportunities to do better, then the very next thing you need to do, and it's probably pretty obvious at this point, you need to get a plan. And your plan should be integrated with other plans that you have in the organization. Things around strategic direction, getting a plan that engages diversity, equity, inclusion should integrate with the strategic plan and be mission centric. Anything that seeks to advance diversity, equity, inclusion that is not connected to the mission and the focus of the organization is going to be doomed to fail from the very beginning. It's important that you answer a critical question, and that is, Why does justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion even matter to our organization? And when you can successfully answer that, that is the beginning of what you need to do in terms of figuring out how to align your thoughts and values around diversity with your current strategic plan or future strategic plan. And then once you've done all that, and I can't understate this enough, communicate, 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 communicate. I don't know if you heard me, but basically it's important for you to communicate. And why it's important for you to communicate, because remember, communication is a two-way street that involves one side involves listening and the other involves sharing. You can't do really good, effective communication without both. So listening, and you should be intentional about creating those opportunities to listen, as well as sharing. And sharing means that you can't operate as the gatekeeper on information that's important for your team to know about and to understand, so they know how to show up every day, that they know how to show up in a way that is equitable and inclusive to encourage the level of diversity that everyone seeks. Well, it hasn't quite been 15 minutes, but I think we'll stop here for today. The idea here is you got to understand how you got to a place, recognize what your history is, who the people are that you're engaging, and what kind of communication that you want to see. Once you have identified and dug into that history and can answer those questions, you want to follow up by thinking about aligning that history with where you are today, through the lens of JEDI, being honest about the opportunities to do better, using that to pull together a plan that integrates with existing plans and strategic direction. And then finally, communicate, communicate, communicate. And remember that communication involves not just sharing information, but listening and being open and curious to new information. We will be back next Thursday for another edition of JEDI Live at noon Eastern Time, where we will be taking up the topic of what do I do when I am the only one, or at least I feel that way. Sometimes identity can be lonely, and we show up as the only one, and we're not sure exactly what we should do with that, or how we should process that, or how we can be successful when we feel really isolated. And so we'll deal a little bit with that next week. If you please come back and join us. We will be here as we are every Thursday at noon for 15 minutes or less for JEDI Lunch Break Live. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, to like, follow, and share at Holiday Advisors across all the platforms. I am looking forward to next week, but I think for today, it's time for me to go take a nap. I'm feeling a little dry. Talk to you soon. Bye. Did you enjoy this segment of JEDI Lunch Break Live? I'll be back next Thursday. Come on back and bring a friend.